Okay. Good afternoon. What? I do have glasses on. It's really funny. I've had so many students ask me about glasses, and it's like one small change to your daily routine. One small change to your daily routine. It really, like I had somebody in the morning class who was like, "Goodness." I kept like wondering if I had, I don't know. You should have seen it. What was? Anyway. All right. So this was the one class out of all my U.S. history classes where we were able to actually stay with a schedule yesterday and actually get stuff done. So I don't know that. And so what that means is that you will probably be the one class today that will get no homework and not have to do anything after school. So I want to get to I want to get to that point though. I had somebody tell me the other day that that this is like the one class that they have where we actually do stuff every day. So today is no different. We were actually going to do stuff today. It kind of makes me sad that that's really the case. But yeah, no, we got stuff that we're going to do today. Before we get to that though, I want to make sure that I give you a quick reminder that your first round of journals are going to be due tomorrow. And if any, I had a slew of people that came in and had me sign something about tomorrow. I don't know what's going on tomorrow. But if you are involved in whatever is going on tomorrow, don't forget that it still means your journals are due tomorrow. If you have already got those shared with me, great. If you have those done and you haven't shared them with me yet, I would strongly suggest that you do that now so you don't forget. If they come in at any point after tomorrow, they are going to be late. If they come in after Tuesday, then they're not going to be worth credit at all. So stay on that, keep on that, and keep an eye on that. The other thing I would tell you too, just in the interest of kind of keeping up on things, I'm kind of looking around the room right here, and I know that I've got a lot of students who either have a job, or they're active in sports, or they're active in some clubs, or you are all three of those things. And I want to remind you of a resource that I've got on the website that is there, that is there to help you keep track of things. That is that course calendar. It is a calendar that I have updated all the way through to basically finals week. So if you have something coming up between now and December, like you can get on there. I've even made accommodations for, those fun things that juniors get to do, like ASVAB and the PSATs and stuff like that. So I've already made accommodations for that. So that schedule, barring something unforeseen, like one of those freak October snowstorms, it's Indiana. Don't laugh. You know that can happen. But assuming nothing like that happens, we really shouldn't see any changes. Yeah. I just try not to go towards court. No, honestly, like even standing right here, it's not in my eye. Not bad. Okay, so let's get to today, please, so we can get you out of here with no home. That's now at the end of class yesterday. Yesterday was all about understanding the French and Indian War, and when we get to the end of it, that there are a series of really big problems that the English have to deal with. And if you remember, what was one of I gave you three. What was one of those big problems that the English had to deal with? Yeah. What? Okay. Wars cost a lot of money. England's got all this debt. How are we going to pay it off? And we'll get into that in a big way today. All right, what's another one, Bree? Absolutely, those dirty pirates. Okay, those smugglers are. It's been going on for a while, but it's getting to the point where England, where Big Daddy's not getting enough money, and so he's getting frustrated with that, and so they're trying to consider ways to bring back that smuggling. And one more. What was the other one? Yeah. What? Western lands. So you've got all these lands. We got all these new lands that England has got from France. Now the war is over. There's lands west of that mountain chain, the Appalachian Mountains. Thank you. Oh, thank you. All right, so it's like, what do we do with all this new land that we have? And as we saw yesterday, and a lot of you got the right decision as far as those western lands go, let's close those down for a little bit. Do we know what to do? Draw that proclamation line. How does that anger American colonists? Somebody? Taylor?
They can't, the population.
All right, you shut the door on us. That's not good. All right. Yeah. Huh? Oh, it's ridiculous. Yes. That's what my 5-year-old says. All right. I don't make fun of them all the time for it, but all right. So the Western lands, yeah, let's shut it down. So then we got the debt issue. Debt issue. Rachel, are you stretching? Get a hand up. Get some side. Robot. Debt issue. What are we gonna do? Taylor, you're the only one apparently who was here. So what do you got? What's your question?
Isn't that upset with it?
I think it made the Indians happy for a while. Draw that proclamation line says you're not be able to send the pale faces over the mountain. No, there's those. But yeah, you're shutting down that land so that only the Indians can live there. I think for at least a while they're happy about it. Now, when us cantankerous Americans decide screw the line and we walk over it, then they sort of. I think the idea. What are they going to do about debt? They got all this debt. What are they going to do with it, Ethan?
They're going to tax us.
Yeah, they're going to tax us, tax Americans. Because you know what? We're really not paying much, right? We're not paying much when we compare it to what English would pay. Yeah, but you know what? Maybe we are looking at it from too much of an American. Maybe it's fairer. All right, so then we've got problem 3, which was we got the Western lands, we got the debt, we got the smuggling. What do they do with the smuggling? We got. Well, it's sort of attached to it. But yeah, Bo, what you got?
So they heavily tax.
Okay, so that, get really strict, So where we go today is, we're at a point where I think the snowball's definitely gotten bigger. Americans are getting ticked off. I don't know that we're still talking revolt, still 1760s. We're getting there though. So what we're going to do today, as I've labeled up here, we're going to basically look at the rest of the stuff. We're going to look at the rest of it because it's kind of wild. We get to 1763, and I would say that Americans are strongly irritated. They're not quite there. Over the course of the next 10 years, they're going to go from strongly irritated to down with the king. So we're going to look at that section today. So here's how we're going to do this. At your tables, each of those tables are going to get somewhere between 5-10 minutes to look at one major moment in the building of that snowman. All right? And you as a group are going to put the whiteboards. And please, when I hand these out, pick somebody at your table whose handwriting we can actually read. Oh boy, I'm a little nervous at this thing. Oh man, a little nervous here. So I'm just going to leave Ethan out. Here we go. Okay, you too. Okay, now on each of those you have basically 3 things that I'm asking you. Actually, 2 things I'm asking you. Number 1, you have got the name. Listen, please. You have got the name of the action. So each of these things that are on these whiteboards represents something that the British do between the years of 1760, so that's 1760, and 1774. So we get add a few extra years. And I can tell you right now that every single one of these whiteboards, every single one of these actions is something that ticks off the American. So none of these are going to make the Americans super happy. They're all going to tick off the American. So keep that in mind. So what I want you as a group to do is, number one, give me a year. Look it up, give me a year. That's the win. Secondly, and this is the real important thing here, tell me what this action did. For example, there is a group out there, and I truthfully do not know which group it is, that has the term impressments. Okay. That obviously is not referring to some way in which the British, really impressed the Americans. That's really cool. No, this is something very different. So look it up. I want the quick of what it did, the year in which the action took place, and then have somebody in the group who's going to write it, and somebody in the group who's willing to work as spokesperson for the group.
Is that just,
Okay. Oh yeah! How about I give you something to write with? That's nice. That makes no sense whatsoever. Right. Oh, you ruined it. That's that works. Look at who's writing?
Effectively control colonial currencies.
Not about this. Unless you just a moment of inspiration, declaratory act.
oh, we're supposed to write all this down.
So we want that here. Some pieces. You should have that. You should not have anything prior to 1760 and nothing after 1774.
That wasn't the question.
Oh, wow. It says that, okay, so basically it is that are not British. So there was like Massachusetts. Which is cool. If you're a Massachusetts guy, you guys are cops. So this law said you do all that only by using British. Now, initially, it's kind of something good. I think it sounds
Well,
good.
it unifies everybody.
Is it the problem is that nobody, unless you were like the top of the top, was in British markets. So all of a sudden, you have to pay all your bills and like pay for anything in British money. There's none of it. So you have no money. You have no money.
So by reissue.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying, it sounds good.
So it stop the making.
I honestly
The value of the radio.
Colonial? How do you say that?
What's up?
Colonial?
I don't expect you to know. Did you say how do you spell?
Colonial.
Yeah, think about where this is.
Hey guys, so
No, everybody's gonna have
that's
that.
two G's.
Same thing. Sugar is. You need it to put in your tea. Because tea is what everyone drinks. Tea is the number one income producing product. Even more than coffee, more tobacco. Everybody drinks tea. And their tea is sweet. It has no flavor to it. So you gotta sugar. Everybody drinks lots of sugar. Lots of sugar. Everybody's got you gotta have sugar make rum. Not drinking tea, drinking rum. That'll really improve it.
I would say
Don't underestimate the alcoholism rates in colonial America, okay? They're really high. Yeah! Pressman is something that the British did back in the Reagan after the war, but it starts after the First World War, which is 1763. And that's really when they begin to use this strategy. It's a pretty crafty strategy. Great if you're British.
I would assume that.
Just don't. This is more which, when we get to that point, we're going to find knowledge. I'm not sure a whole lot of things.
Are you just saying they weren't
This
happy?
is something that actually on one side it's kind of because it is
You need to turn that around.
they throw online at the end where it says, let's be clear that we as people feel like, you know, we want to show if you get done, because we're going to take another minute or two, you might look at the handout that I gave you. This is sort of our guide for the day, and it will be something, or a good chance that we may collect it for some points here. But you could find your row and put the year under the name of the act. And then you could go ahead and fill in that first blank column, be the middle column. Can't do the last one, but you could definitely do the middle column, and then you could already have that done. This.
We weren't supposed to fill out how to.
No, we're not there. I mean, you may already have.
Well, we kind of guessed.
What it-
but, I mean, I'm assuming
we
they
just
weren't
gave the
happy.
year, it was vote.
Hey, I gave you a marker. What are you writing on my paper?
No. Probably got markers. Yeah.
Hey, why don't you go to like a sports game or something? Like, are they just reading lessons?
Oh, no, I have written. Legally blind. Okay, where are we at here, folks? You guys ready to where we at?
I'm on
You got the? Okay, we're gonna need more than that.
Like the fancy SpongeBob though?
Yeah.
Did somebody like press your pin down?
You know, okay, here's the thing. At some point in the last 24 months, And I took it to the dry cleaner. The dry cleaner returned it with a note saying, I can't So I thought, okay, this is actually really good. I thought I can either toss it or so I just decided to keep wearing it. And people just keep asking me. That's fine. You don't use it because he knows he's about material appearance. I'm Ross. I'm really looking like his. He's Chuck Norris. He's Chuck Norris is better. Yeah, he was forced to keep it. Yeah. Let me tell you what. A ton of people watching my show. His following is like less than nobody watched the Jordan Rise. Nobody watched it. So I find it very hard to believe that that there. I can see these conversations with people that want to be big words that saying, I'll cut that. We're gonna lose all 10 of the people watching the show. Oh, we got more than that. I mean, what we got?
So you're wearing a basketball
Is everybody else done? Other than Bo? You hear that on the live stream? Bo Bailey is the only one not done.
Because he has to keep redoing his hair.
That's recording.
Oh, it is.
I am so real. When the light is, when it's recording with the lights on, it means I have it set to where if you're on it right now, you would just see it projector. Because if I don't have it set to that and you just go from here to there, you really can't see it.
So you can hear everything.
Like you can hear me, but the only thing you can see is that screen.
So everyone.
Yeah.
No, not like you said anything bad. You need to give us a warning.
No.
Yeah, you have to. It's like, what am I talking bad about something?
Or you can, just not talk about it. That's okay, hey, we're going to get rolling here. And we're going to go through these in chronological order. That is not necessarily how they have been separated out to you. But I will say this, that the handout, the guide that you have is in order. So there's that. Now, here's what I'd like for us to do as we look through this. We're going to go through and we're going to hear from the different groups. I want you to give us the year. I want you to tell us what it did. And then I've also really shortly put that up here. And so this is not so much notes as it's like a summary of what we're going to hear from the groups. So that summary is what goes in the middle column. And everyone needs to be doing this as we go. And then in the right column is where we're going to spend some time looking at how the colonials responded to each of these things. Now, we already know that each of these things makes the manual. But I think we can put a little bit more to it, be a little bit more specific on the ways in which they respond. Right? So that's what goes in that last column. And as we get started, what I want to start us off with is this quote. Now, I've mentioned this quote, paraphrased it a couple of times in here, but this is a quote from John Adams. John Adams, president number 2, to Tom Jefferson, who will be president number 3. Now, the two of them had a very interesting relationship. I wouldn't say that they liked each other a lot. Certainly not while they were president. John Adams, when he was president, Jefferson was his vice president. Not because John Adams picked Tom Jefferson, but it was because back then, this case 1796, the person who finished second in the presidential election became vice president. That's how it works. Tom Jefferson finished second to John Adams. Not like they liked each other or they agreed. In fact, they disagreed on just about everything. But later on in life, they they developed a mutual respect. That happened to them. So John Adams wrote a letter to Tom Jefferson where he said this: the revolution, this thing that we fought for, worked through, was in the minds of the people. This started from 1760 to 1775, over the course of 15 years before a drop of blood was shed at Lexington. So Lexington, the shot heard around the world, first legitimate battle of the Revolution. But that, I guess, might be the official start to this whole thing. And by the way, Lexington takes place before the Declaration of Independence. But Adams is telling Jefferson, when I think about it, this was something that was going on long before that. The snowball had been rolling downhill for a long time. So that's what we're looking at today, are these events between 60 and 75 that represent what John Adams is talking about. Another weird irony with these two. Tom Jefferson was the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, which a lot of you know. John Adams, though, was part of what they called the Committee of Five. The five guys who were responsible for writing this thing. One was Tom Jefferson. Another was John Adams. A third guy was Ben Franklin. Now, there's a great old story. Tom Jefferson, who was the youngest of the group at that time, was up in Philadelphia. He has this job to write the Declaration, and he develops this writer's block. He can't figure out what exactly he wants to say. So as the story goes, Ben Franklin, who was well known for being quite friendly with the ladies, said, what needs to happen here? Tom has been away from his wife, Martha, for far too long. I bet if we could get her up here to Philadelphia, we could get things. And so as the story goes, now I don't know if this is true or not, but as the story goes, Martha comes in the evening. By the next morning, Tom Jefferson has the first draft of the Declaration. Take that for what you will, But these two have a history, I guess. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Right? So it's ironic that both of these guys died on the same day. And it happens to be July 4th. July 4th, 1826, John Adams' last words before dying was, "Jefferson lives." Turns out Jefferson had died 3 hours earlier, but John Adams. But they've got an interesting history. So we're going through today, trying to get a sense for what Adams is saying here. What's the thing? Now, I mentioned here that we got a lot of seaport action. Okay, most Americans at this point in time, vast majority, lived on the East Coast. Made sense for a lot of reasons. And so it's in those seaports, Charleston, South Carolina, Boston, Massachusetts, where we see a lot of the initial action of the Revolution taking place. And it's also where the biggest reactions are felt. So who had impressment? Because that's what we're going to start off with. So this table here, can you tell us a little bit about what impressment is, and maybe give us a starting point for this action? What's your date? When did you start your year? Sorry. All right, 1763, I think, is a good starting date. This is the only of all of the different things I put out there to you guys that is, that has like a span in time, I think, in play here. So 1763 all the way up through 1780, it's a long range. 1763 would work as a starting point. It's going to stop for a while. It's going to pick back up again during the winter. Why what? Because the British is too good. All right, so, Rachel, what are the British doing? Can we be more specific? There's one specific thing that impressment is. You're on the right track. Okay. Yeah. So if you impress somebody, other than making them think that this is really cool, Another definition of impressing somebody is to forcibly put them into a service of some kind. So I think we could legitimately say that slavery is a form of impressment. What's happening here, though, is that British ships who have been decimated by the wars that they have fought with France are now in desperate need of sailors. And so what they are often doing is just British ships pull into a harbor, pull into Boston Harbor, and lo and behold, in the wrong place at the wrong time is Noah and Zane and Poe and Batesy. And so then the British say, hey, we need sailors. They handcuff these 4 guys, throw them on the ship and say, welcome to the British Navy. That voice, it's very official. Welcome to the British Navy. No, there's not. You have a family? Oh, great. Well, maybe someday you'll see it. Yeah, but welcome to the British Navy. That's it. That's how it goes. So why would that make you mad? Oh, I don't know. It's an awful lot like kidnapping. It's an awful lot like slavery. But maybe a little bit. But when you're thrown in handcuffs and put on a ship and the ship pulls out in the ocean, what are you going to do? To jump off and you're... Yeah, Rachel. Oh, I don't know. No. Yeah, Rachel asked, do you think some people committed suicide because of that? I absolutely think that happened. I think that there were some people who probably tried to sabotage the ship they were on. I think there were people who probably tried to do just about everything. But at the end of the day, when Big Daddy's got the gun pointed at you, so making the colonists mad, yeah, a little bit. I mean, it got them really mad. In fact, a lot of people, when they think of a Boston protest, they think of what? Big Boston protest. Yeah, Massacre of the Tea Party. Okay, the Boston Tea Party was like the 9th protest in Boston. There were people protesting. In fact, Samuel Adams, John Adams' cousin, really well-known, signed the Declaration, big wealthy tavern owner in Boston. He got so mad when he found out that the British had impressed a couple of his buddies that he leads a giant mob down to Boston Harbor. They managed to get there before the ship pulls out. They basically mob rush that ship, grab their buddies, and take them back. I mean, Americans are starting to get really ticked off by this, and I think we can certainly see why. Okay? But I'll tell you, as angry as that makes Americans, the taxes, man, that's what it really comes down to. Right? So let's take a look at these taxes. We're going to roll through these pretty fast. Get to yours. Give us a year. Tell us what it was all about. So, who had the Sugar Act? Ladies, whoever's in charge. Tell us what's going on.
It was in 1764, and I always mess up. Colonial?
Colonial.
Yeah, whatever. Merchants were required to pay a tax of 6 pence per gallon on the importation of foreign molasses.
Okay. So translate, they're taxing sugar. Now, why is that such a big deal? They use sugar in everything. Okay? The biggest selling product in North America was not tobacco, was not cotton, Hannah Love, what was it?
Wait,
Biggest selling product that everyone bought. No, that's what the sugar went into.
Tea.
Tea! Hey, it's tea. Yeah, so it's tea. And by the way, and I'll send it around now, but if you would please be extremely careful. When you bought tea, you did not buy like tea bags. Maybe you ever drink hot tea? Yeah, you didn't buy tea bags. You bought bricks of tea. I happen to have a brick of tea. And, usually these bricks were very intricately designed, had this nice little print on it. If you were extremely wealthy, you could buy the entire brick. It would last you for a long time. But most of the time, people weren't quite that wealthy, and so they would split them up into pieces and buy one square. And what you do is you get your mug of steaming hot water. You take this brick and hold over it. You whittle off the tea into the water, stir it up, and there you go. And it tasted like crap. Awful. So to make the tea taste better, you needed what, Hannah? Sugar. And everybody's drinking tea. In fact, they're drinking multiple cups of tea a day. So let's take sugar, because everybody uses sugar. If they don't use sugar for their tea, they use it for their rum. And if you're not drinking tea, you're probably drinking rum and sometimes put it together. Right? So there's the tea brick. Please be careful. Hey, if you get a chance, smell it. It's not weird. Right? Yeah, it's really it's real tea. You can make it. It's not like it's from like I didn't fish it out of Boston Harbor. If that's what you're asking. But it's pretty old. It's pretty old. Okay, so the Sugar Act, yeah, I mean, why are Americans going to be mad about that? Because it's like you're taxing just an everyday thing, and I'm not sure that we really love it. So that's going to take us. All right, what about the Currency Act? Who's got the Currency Act? Tell us about the Currency Act.
It began in 1764. It made the colonists stop making their own money, and they had to use British money.
Okay. So I talked with this group about how in the 13 colonies, each of the colonies often have their own money, their own paper. So there might have been there might be Massachusetts money, there might be Virginia money. That's a little bit chaotic, I think. If a guy in Massachusetts is trying to buy tobacco from a guy in Virginia, what does he pay with? Massachusetts money, Virginia money? I don't know. So we talked about it with the group that in some ways this is a good thing, it seems like, because everybody now uses the same money, British money. But Taylor, we also talked about why that is a problem. Why is it a problem to have everybody use British money? There's very little actual British money in the 13 colonies. All right, so it would be like saying everyone has to use American dollars, but you can't find an American dollar to buy something. So now you've got colonials who have bills to pay, who need to buy food, who need to buy sugar, who need to pay taxes, and they don't have any money to actually buy that stuff with. Timothy. Yeah, but how, you're paying your taxes to Britain. Yeah, but the problem with that is let's say that local grocery store is the place where you're buying sugar. At some point, that local grocery store is going to have to pay tax on that sugar, and they're going to have to pay it in British money. So if they don't have that British money to pay the tax with, then they're going to end up getting screwed over, which they don't want. So they're going to force you to pay them in that British money. It's an absolute economy killer potential. And it again ticked off the Americans. Now, here's the reaction. Between the Sugar and the Currency Act, colonials responded with what they called a non-importation movement. All right, so an import is a product that you bring in from someplace else, like British tea. So what they're doing here is basically a boycott. We will not buy British tea until they take these laws away, which they didn't do. And eventually people kind of got over it. But once again, you see Americans now are starting to stand up to Big Daddy. Well, we're not going to just sit back and take it anymore. We'll do a boycott. Now, it didn't work, but it's the principle of the thing. All right. Let's talk about the Stamp Act. Do the Stamp Act. All right, go for it. Okay, so I got kind of a summary up there on the board. Everything that is a legal document. So let's think about that. Could be a contract. Could be a will. Could be buying a home. Could be a marriage license. Could be a birth certificate, a death certificate. In fact, England included things like playing cards as legal documents. Not sure how that works, but they do. So everything that you had that was considered a legal document had to have a stamp. Now, I'm going to throw some stuff on there. It doesn't necessarily go on your guide, but I want to show you what the stamp looked like. Right there. That's what the stamp looked like. So they had, they had different English people around the colonies that had these stamps on them. And if you needed a stamp, you went up, you paid your tax. They stamped it for you. And you had to pay for it in British money. Right there. That's the problem. Now, what do we see on some reactions? Well, in Virginia, they passed something called the Resolves, which is basically the entire colony standing up and saying, England, this is wrong. Now, that may not seem like it, but that's a big deal. Virginia mouthing off to Big Daddy. That's a big deal. We also see after this the formation of a group called the Sons of Liberty, which is quite a cast of characters. This is the group who are going to eventually dress up as Mohawk Indians and go down to Boston Harbor and climb aboard some ships and tomahawk some boxes of tea and throw it into Boston Harbor. Okay? They are wreaking absolute havoc wherever they can.
Couldn't they just steal like the stamp from like a place that had it, and then they can just stamp all their stuff and then put it back?
Sure. If you can pull that off, Ethan, go for it. Probably going to be hard to do. Most of these stamp, guys who have the stamp are guarded by redcoat soldiers with guns. But if you can pull it off, you can go for it. Between all of these things, the Stamp Act Congress, England got the message. We've ticked them off. We better do something about it. So, we see England pass the Declaratory Act. Gentlemen, what did that act do? All right, let's throw a little more to it. What year do you have, by the way? Okay, notice the year. It's 1 year after the Stamp Act. And this law does two things. They're both really important. Number one, it actually repeals the Stamp Act. That's a big deal. The Stamp Act, the thing that has ticked off American colonists, is dead. No longer do you have to buy these stamps. It's a good thing. But at the end of that law, the Declaratory Act, Britain throws in a little thing that says, we repeal the Stamp Act, but we reserve the power to bring it back at some point. That we reserve the power to do anything to you that we want. We want you to know we're going to give you a favor here. But remember who's boss. Remember who's Big Daddy. So it's a win, kind of. But it's a win. Because you know what it does? If it doesn't do anything else, it shows Americans that if we are willing to stand up together, Big Daddy, we can get England to do something. We can move them if we do it together. By the way, the Sons of Liberty started handing around these new stamps here. This is the protest stamp. See it marked down here. Oh, the fatal stamp. All right, let's finish up today because we're running out of time. Let's finish up with the Townshend Acts. Who's got that? Townshend Acts. Gentlemen. 1767, very good. Anybody else? Yeah, it kind of seems like a random collection of stuff, but it's not random at all. It's not random. Number one, they're pretty common things that everyone's going to use. Glass, yeah. Paper, always use paper. Lead, what do you use lead for? Paint. Ammunition. And of course, tea, we know the importance of tea. So here's the first time where we see them taxing tea. Now, The Americans have just scored a big victory with the Declaratory Act. Then the British bring this, and they are angry again. And now they feel like empowered. We've already stood up to the English. They backed down. Let's do it again. And so we see a group of Bostonians, some of them Sons of Liberty, march down to Boston Square, where they find a regiment of British soldiers just, kind of hanging out. And it's snowing and it's cold, and these Americans are yelling and screaming some nasty things at the British, but whatever. But it's getting a little out of hand. In fact, it gets to the point where some of the British soldiers are getting a little nervous. They're shouldering their weapons. As the story goes, in the middle of all this, someone throws a snowball. We have a literal snowball now. But he throws a snowball. It hits one of the British soldiers, and guess what? I wish. No. It's the British, one of the British soldiers fires their guns, which then leads all of them. And they fire into this crowd. This is, of course, the Boston Massacre. And when the gunfire stops, there are bodies all over the street. One of them, Crispus Attucks, who's a freed slave. And Paul Revere is ready to paint something. He paints this painting over here. Bo Bailey's going to point to it. Pretty famous painting. Think of Paul Revere. He was a silversmith. So it actually wasn't a painting. It was actually an engraving that he had done. One of those cool moments in my life, I got to see one of those engravings by Paul Revere. So they painted it based off of the Revere woodcut. And so that's what we've got. Now, we'll look into that a little bit closer tomorrow. But that is a direct reaction to Americans protesting these township maps.
Why is there a dog on it?
That's funny. When we look at this, that's the first thing that everyone notices. And the answer to your question is, I don't know. Maybe Paul. Actually, in the original engraving, there is no dog. If I had to guess, I would say that it's an emotional thing. Dogs were man's best friend back then, and here's this sad little dog whose owner maybe has just been shot. And now the dog's going to be wandering alone, all because of the British. It's worth noting as well, I'll end it on this. Some of those British soldiers were put on trial. And the man who defended them and defended them successfully, John Adams. We will leave it at that. Pick back up with this tomorrow. Hey, if you have questions on what we've gone over, I'll answer those. Bring this back tomorrow. We got a few more minutes. Yes. If you could, I've got well, I did. If not, let's get another one. Get some brown paper towel, erase what you got, and I'll take the boards back up to the front room. Bring these back tomorrow, please. Caleb? Well, remember I told you to write yours onto the handout? Yeah, if you didn't present today, make sure you did write yours on the handout. See? Where's my key? No. That's what I'm wrapping my key in.
Sorry.
Actually, what's really cool is that one of the ocean decorations, they're all and one of them, I don't know what it was, one guy decided to hang it and on display, so everyone can see it. Except that he, number one, not doing anything to protect him, number two, so for 30 years, and so they, in 18, it was 1813, they started to do a called rock copy. Set it out and they wrote it on the rock as almost destroyed it. But now you have 10 copies. 10 copies of it. And I got to see one of them. There's not a whole lot of
Is paper made out of tree? Is it made out of?
Well, now you understand when you go to DC, not seeing the
Not just paper in general.
The original is only on display twice a year. What's funny though is one of the copies that they, they're not all like it's made out of, but it's a good job. One of the copies, you look really close to the bottom, I'll take one. And apparently what had happened is that one of the archive curators tried to impress
You're gonna go buy a tree at.
girl. Brought her back to the archive.
How are you gonna know?
So we opened it up. Apparently she was
They're seeds.
They're just here. Honestly, that's a good point. Because then it kind of just, we're always here.
Make sure I have your boards and we'll see you tomorrow. Markers, I'll take those up here too, please. Yeah, now, you know, you can buy them like really cheap. I want this from a guy. He makes two things. He makes he makes what called Meerschaum pipes. That's the pipe. It's called Meerschaum pipe. It's Meerschaum, which is basically a meter.
Hi, Katie. Love you.
Love you.
So it's really hard to find. It's very, very expensive.
Hey, sorry for you.
And we're like, I'll give you a crash course right now.
I've had it for a long time. Let me think about it. I can't remember what I paid for it. I mean, it was like which maybe it's not. Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, there's a difference between like buying a Meerschaum pipe. Well, Meerschaum's not something you can find in quantity. Oh, those were, you know, well over $500. Yeah, but you know, they're intricately carved, just like that one in the trade. Hi, guys.
I watched the series.
Can we just push this back to tomorrow? No, like,
I can't.
listen, I got your email and I was like,
I'm not ready.
To be
Has
fair.
anyone ever called you Casey?
fine, I looked up the thing last week and didn't see it.
Oh, it was there. I promise you, I would not lie. Actually, it's been on there since, what was the first day of school?
Mr. Klein. I have a serious question. Look, does it work?
What you do is you get everyone to blink. And then when they blink, it makes it look like. I feel like it's only a magic trick that would work in Denver.
Is he doing this?
I know that makes no sense, but it just feels right.
What is he doing?
Katie, you may try real magic.
Willie.
Okay, I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna read your mind.
Okay.
Okay. Now, as we work through this, you're not allowed to speak. You can just nod to let me know you're with me. We're gonna go. I want you to think of a number between 2 and 9.
Study.
Take that number, multiply it by 9. Okay. Now I don't know what number's in your head, but it has to be 2 digits. So I want you to take the 2 digits and add them together.
Okay.
Take the new number you have and subtract 5. Okay, take the new number you have and think of a letter of the alphabet. So if you're thinking 1, think A, 2, B, and so on. Right. Take that letter and think of the first country that pops in your head that starts with that letter. Okay, go to the end of the country's name. Think of the last letter in that country's name. Think of the first animal that pops in your head that starts with that letter.
Okay.
Now go to the end of that animal's name. Think of the last letter in that animal's name. Think of the first color that pops in your head that starts with that letter. Shall we start again?
Quiet. Okay. Okay. We're good.
All the way to the end? We got all the way through?
Yeah.
You think about-
Wait, color.
you think
Color
about-
for the end.
Okay, this might not have worked out.
Let's start again. Let's start again. All right, you ready? Think of a number. No, let's start again. Think of a number between 2 and 9. Take that number, multiply it by 9. Should have 2-digit number. Add the 2 digits together. Take the new number, subtract 5 from it. That new number you have here, you have to letter the alphabet, 1A, 2B. That letter, think of the first country that pops in your head that starts with that letter. Last letter of the country's name. First animal that pops in your head that starts with that letter. Last letter of the animal. Think of the first color.
I'll just think first color, yeah.
23.
Orange kangaroos in Denver.
DC 23.
So you must be thinking of something with an A. For koalas.
What is this? Who's this?
What's the first country that popped in your head?
Gibbon.
Was it really?
Yeah, because she's D.
She said
She's the only person who has ever done that.
What?
I got Russia.
Wait, no.
Your math is wrong.
No, your math is wrong.
Are you ready?
It's
Yeah.
27.
You got it. You can't talk. You can just nod. Okay, here we go. Think of a number between 2 and 9.
Okay.
Take that number, multiply it by 9. Okay. Should have a 2-digit number. Add those 2 digits. Take the new number, subtract 5. Worried that it took you that long. Okay. Now the new number you have, you can put it with a letter. Like if you're thinking 1, think A, 2, B, and so on.
Wait, what do you mean at that part?
Okay. So the letter, think of the first country in the world that starts with that. Pops in your head. Starts there. Go to the end of the country's name. The last letter of the country. First animal that pops in your head that starts with that letter. The end of the animal. Last letter of the animal. Think of the first color that pops in your head that starts with that letter.
Wait, hold on.
Go to the end of the animal. The last letter. Think of the first color that starts with that letter. Orange kangaroos in Denver.
I thought a zebra. That was an A.
Then your math is wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's get ready for this.
Why did mine work?
Like just a different country.
That's literally all.
Nobody thinks everybody was
Okay,
thinking
well,
that.
people always misspell it, and it really frustrates me, so I was like, I don't know why that was on my head.
I'm waiting for a earthquake to hit because I want the newspaper to say earthquake shakes Jamaica.
I was like,
Yeah.
wait, what was that?
Yes, sir. You guys read you wild.
I listened to the video, and it was kind of hard to hear. I don't know what was wrong, maybe it was like.
Okay. Hey, we spread yourselves out. It will be a Google Forms multiple choice. So we're gonna have like one person to a table type of deal. If you do have 2 people to a table, you need to sit across from that person, please. No more than 2 people to a table, though. Spread yourselves out. And guys, look, read the questions carefully. You'll be fine. You really will be fine. When you're done, if you are still needing to do the written, those are up here. Okay, the prompt was in your email, so we should have known that. Some of you already have the written done. If you need passes to 7th period, I can do that. But don't forget about it.
I didn't get it.
Yeah,
It's on the website. You should have done it before class.
What?
Right?
You could. I said this last. I said it through Alma.
It didn't say.
You said, what do you mean you said it was all?
Mine's not
All.
Let's swear. Yeah, swear, whenever it is.
What? Wait. Did you email the form to us too?
It's
No.
on. It's on his
Calling sometime. I got a serious question though. Has anyone ever called you Casey? Casey. Killer Croc. You think it's a bad idea to call you Casey? I was thinking.
No, I would tell you all good luck. That implies you haven't started. So it's nice. Haven't heard that one? Fine.
Drive on the uniform.
Haven't heard of that.
Well, it's not working for me, man.
I can say. All right, can the talking. Brad, I'll email to you.